Good evening, YouTube, and welcome back to another Total War Warhammer 2 online battle. Last week we focused on Dawi, and I guess that I've kind of ended up at their polar opposite this week, which is going to be the Wood Elves. So I'm going to have a little fun with them. Now, one of the reasons I picked the Wood Elves is because I know they will create a challenge for me. They are a faction that requires a lot of finesse in order to play them competitively. Yes, you can play them for fun just about any way you want, but they have a lot of very weak units that are meant for very specific tasks, and in that task, they will be quite good. And it's just, you usually have small armies, you have to deal with a lot of skirmishers or a lot of fast movers or something like that, so they can be challenging. So I'm going to start with the Wood Elves for night number 1 here. I've chosen a couple of different variations of a rush army that ended up working out in terms of being a viable pick for the 2 matches. And I'm not going to tell you whether I win. I know, Eric, you just said working out. That doesn't mean that I won. I'm saying working out in the sense that it was a match where I felt like I could pick this and not get instantly beat by my opponent, just having a faction that's very good at countering what I'm bringing. So what did I bring? Let's show you real quick. So I'm doing a double dragon build. Sometimes people expect the Wood Elves to bring a Gladion, a dragon. They probably don't expect you to bring 2 dragons. And with the Beastmen as my opponent, the Beastmen struggle with terror, and they're also not fantastic against large. If they pool their resources, they can be pretty good against 1 dragon. I think they will struggle versus 2. And so that was why I thought, again, this is a situation where this could work. Doesn't mean it will work. So as for the rest of my army, I've got the 2 dragons, one of which has my Glade Lord. I have 2 Wild Riders hidden in the woods over here. Wild Riders are pretty darn good. I think they're superior to Centaurs. If you get a good charge, they are a very good unit. And then in the middle, I have the Winterheart Guards, because I wanted a little bit of my line to be unbreakable. A standard Eternal Guard, 2 Treekin to give the Beastmen something tough to chew on, right? They can't just plow right through it. A couple more Eternal Guard without shields in the back. A Spellsinger, Lure of Life with Earth Blood and Regrowth. And then I've got 2 Dryads just to have a little bit of damage dealing. Now my army is very small. Very small. My opponent's army is widespread. It's a big army. He's probably expecting to have to envelop and potentially take on a lot of skirmishers. Let's show you his army real quick. He's got 2 Ungor Spears on either flank. His front line is 4 Goreherds with shields. He has 3 Ungor Raiders, and then he has Kazrak the One-Eye on a Chariot. Chariot typically a good pick versus the Wood Elves for busting through and trying to get to the soft archers in the middle. Chaos Warhound with Poison, Sons of Goros, Bray Shaman, Lure of Wild. We have the Butchers of Kalkengard, and that Bray Shaman is rocking Devolve, which is good against multiple combatants. He's also got Traderkin, good versus a single, and Vile Tide, a whole bunch of different stuff. He's got 1 more Centaur on his left-hand flank. Let's see how this plays out. As I initially see my opponent approach, I want to pull back just a little bit because I want to have a position to try and be annoying for a second with my dragons. I want to disrupt my opponent's charge and make him fight me in a way that isn't advantageous to him. As I pull up, though, this Ungor Raider becomes unhidden, and I realize I'm about to get shot. I do a quick dodge in order to take most of that volley of fire away from me. My opponent, I didn't think was paying attention from behind. I see a Centaur here. I'm going to give an attack order on it and try and take it out of the game early and try and give myself a mobility advantage. Now over here, I mean, an Ungor Spearherd has no business fighting a dragon, so I gave it a quick charge, did some damage, and now you can see I've isolated a few units here, and I'm going to pull them in and try and quickly destroy them while my opponent is reacting to bring his forces from afar. Indeed, we got the Centaur, and now I'm going to move my dragon into position. See, he's blobbing into this, and that was intended with this type of army. He has to suck things in from the edge and hopefully blob up on me, and if he does, I do a heal, and then it makes him ripe for a breath attack from the Forest Dragon. So definitely an intentional setup here in terms of trying to draw him in for as much damage as possible. I get a very good flank attack with the breath. 55 kills. We've routed this flank. And then my Wild Riders were about to get his archers, but he reacted with the Sons of Goros and a Poison Warhound, so I decided to pull back and continue focusing my efforts in the middle because I have a route going, and I need to keep it that way if I want to try and press the advantage against my opponent because he has more troops than me, and I need to down as many of his troops as possible. I was going to turn into the Chaos Warhound with Poison here, smash it, because I should be able to with my Wild Riders, because it is alone, and then we can focus out the Sons of Goros, but my opponent rage quits. I don't know if it was like true rage or not, but he quits thinking that he can't win. There was a lot of battle left. A whole lot of battle left. And I'm not going to show my opponent's name because this is not meant to be a name and shame type of thing here. So I'm not going to show his name because I don't want anybody like giving him grief or something. This is me asking from a polite standpoint. If you're going to go play quick battle, don't quit till the battle's over. Even if someone brings an army that makes you upset or maybe winning. In this case, I don't know. He has a lot of troops left here. I have a relatively small army. Yes, he has the challenge of killing 2 dragons. He might pull it off. He might pull it off, even with non-elite troops. So I'm going to show you another battle where I played someone who also brought a faction, didn't have a bunch of elite infantry or cavalry or anything like that, and I brought a very similar build. Let's go take a look at that. This time, that person doesn't quit, but as you can see, some of my strategy was working from the get-go here, which was get my opponent to blob up and start making some mistakes, take some units out early, get his mobility off the field, at which point we clean up the archers, and then the treekin help hold long enough to get the dragons into late game to terrify everything. So possibly would have worked here, we just don't know. Okay, this was another battle where I'm using a variant of the same army. Tomorrow I'm going to move on from this particular army and start trying something different. Obviously we're going to have to get into some skirmishing with the Wood Elves. I was just, again, starting out where I was more familiar. So this variant, I've dropped the treekin, and I've gone with a slightly different layout of infantry. I still have the 2 dragons, but I've brought a Great Eagle as well. The idea here is for my opponent to maybe get confused about what to target if he brings all of his skirmishers. Already you can see he's picked up the Eagle. My opponent has a front line with a bunch of bleak swords and dread spears, and then the same thing in the back, just 2 lines with a ton of standard infantry. I think his idea here was, I have some range to pull his archers in, I have enough shields that if he goes archer heavy on me, he just won't have enough ammunition to pull off a victory. But my strategy wasn't that focused. Now, however, that leaves me in a position where I'm outnumbered 2 to 1. So I have to kill 2 to 1 in order to win. It's certainly possible with the build I have, but I'm going to have to do some focus. Now, at this point, I can't see the 3 shades that he has over here. So these units are not visible to me. He's got the bolt thrower. He's obviously hoping to maybe draw something in and then spring these shades on him and annihilate that unit. You can see over here my opponent kind of taking up a defensive position. Now, as for my infantry, I've got 3 Eternal Guard coming through this direction with the Spell Singer and some Wild Riders, and then Vanguard deployed all the way in the back, and probably coming out of the woods a little too early here is my second group. I have another Wild Rider. I've got 3 Dryads and the Wardens of Sithral. So my infantry force vastly outnumbered, but my damage force in the terms of my dragons should be in pretty good position. Now, coming out of the woods too early is a mistake because now I'm just open to fire here, and my other group isn't anywhere near ready for position. Plus, as I draw fire from certain units, I should have been a little more patient here. Started moving some of these units around, get in a position to surround my opponent's army so that if he focuses too much in one direction, we pick off something else. Now let's take a look at his leadership corps. It's an interesting one. All of his lords are on foot, which is actually pretty unfortunate for me because it makes it harder for my dragons to zerg them. He's got a K-Knight Assassin, which actually ends up being a pretty good support unit in this case because of its poison and heavy missile damage. Then there is a Sorceress Laura Beast with Doom Flock and a Manticore summon, and then Lokir Fellheart. Fellheart will be problematic for my infantry. If my dragons can get him alone, it wouldn't be a problem. But again, you can see me running around like an idiot over here now because I sprung my infantry too early. But now I'm going to approach my opponent from this flank. So here's what I'm hoping for. Again, at this point, I still can't see his shades. So I figure this side of the battlefield is empty. And what I'm hoping to do is attack my opponent here and here. He then reacts by pooling his forces into this vicinity to fight me off. My dragons come in, breath attacks from the flanks, bring the Great Eagle in from behind, start mopping up some of these units back here, and take my opponent out in a mass terror rout, hopefully. So we'll see whether or not this plan works. It's at this point the shades get sprung on me, and I was like, holy crap. So we got 3 shades over here, and I realized that there's a lot more to deal with on this battlefield than originally met the eye. I initially come in for a charge over here. This is ill-advised. I'm under a lot of fire and getting pretty close to his army. Now I just have to pull away and take shots. Fortunately for me, he had this unit out of position, and I knew I wanted to get over here towards the shades anyway. So I'm going to get a quick charge on these dark shards, but this is risky because the dread spears are very nearby. Good for me, though. I got an eagle and Wild Riders inbound. This was just a bad move. These Wild Riders are way overexposed here. Way overexposed. So the infantry fight begins in somewhat the position I expect. I've used one breath attack to kill a pretty good number of these dark shards and do a lot of damage. So I'm trying to clear up his skirmishers. I figure if I can clear the skirmishers off the battlefield, we can just use our dragons to power our way to victory. However, I don't have forever, so I'm going to take one dragon and get down here and see if I can terrify some of his cheap infantry, because his leadership wasn't immediately present over here, and I was like, well, I could probably terror out this stuff through here and start folding in. Unfortunately for me, these dread spears don't even begin to terror out, so a little bit frustrating, and then he summons a feral manticore to challenge me. Now, 2 shades down, but at the same time, I need help in this fight over here because my opponent has numbers. Now, we finally get some terror going on 1 unit of dread spears, but we still have the manticore. So a little bit of success. This leaves his Reaper Bolt Thrower open, so now this Wild Rider is just going to go on an absolute tear. Unfortunately for me, one of my Wild Riders is completely wasted due to my mismanagement of it, but this one is definitely going to get his money's worth. At this point, he's taken out 2 shades, and now a Reaper Bolt Thrower, and we'll have a chance to clean up some regrouped shades as it stands. Now, the bad news is that in the meantime over here, my infantry is taking a beating from a superior Dark Elf force and really needs the support of my dragons. One has been here, but it has not chain routed near enough of these units yet. I see the Dark Shards open for another nice breath attack here, going to basically finish them off. I'm going to use my Eagle and my Shades to go, or sorry, and my Wild Riders to go after Shades. Look at this unit here, 100 kills. It is just racking it up at the moment. I'm going to bring one of my dragons down again, see if I can terror out this little ball right here, and then free up my forces for another fight. The Wardens of Cithral managed to get a fair number of kills, but not a great fight for them over here, and Lokir is working them over pretty bad. This dragon is a little bit exposed too. And look at this! No terror route! Just kind of blown away here. What happens? Like, I didn't expect, you know, I'm actually, now I'm curious, yeah, it gives him 15 leadership. This is probably what's holding them in the fight, is the murderous prowess. It's just enough leadership to probably keep him in there. Now, over here, Wild Riders swinging in. I want to take out the Dark Shards. There's yet another Manticore summon, and there keeps being regrouped units out here, which are annoying, and those spears are helping to guard this one last shade, though it's not an immediate threat. Unfortunately for me, all of my infantry just crumbles here, which frustrates me, but I guess I didn't expect them to fall that fast to Bleak Swords and other units, especially when they had some dragon support, but they did. They just absolutely fell apart in this fight. It was a pretty pathetic showing on the part of my infantry. You can see the number of kills these Bleak Swords are getting. They're just doing well against my infantry, more so than I expected. However, fight's not over yet, but I've gotten myself into a bit of a pickle here. 2 things I want to talk about. One, I have overcommitted to this fight. I was hoping maybe I could get a quick knockout on the Manticore, but it doesn't knock out quit, and there's a lot of units to support, and this Canite Assassin is sitting back with a perfect firing angle. And then over here, of course I want the Shades gone, but there's something to notice. Those Shades, they're out of range for anything significant over here. And so I shouldn't have pushed these Wild Riders in this direction because they're guarded by the spears, and now I'm just going to take a bunch of shots. So don't overcommit to fights like this when there's maybe something more important going on elsewhere. Just a bit of FYI. I am still going to probably be able to mostly take out this Shade as clean as possible, given the situation with a little bit of maneuvering, but we've got to get out of there quick because we're being chased by a Dread Spear, and I really need those Wild Riders. My Eagle manages to clean up a few more Dark Shards, but with very little infantry support, I'm in trouble. Good news! Good news, everyone! My forces are regrouping. Bad news, everyone! There's still a lot of bad guys. But I guess if we were going to go back to the good news, I've still got several breath attacks left, so pretty excited about that to see what I can do with it. My dragons, though, are in pretty rough shape. I've done a little bit of healing on both, and they're still in pretty tight shape. You can see this Dark Shard keeps coming back from routing. It's been annoying. I've had to kill each of his skirmishers multiple times, which has been a bit frustrating, but that's just how it works. You got to get them all the way out, or that's what you're going to have to deal with. So I decided to pull back. I want to regroup. And so I decided to get kind of greedy here and take a charge on these Dark Shards. I want them gone, but again, the Canite Assassin's close. That's going to lead to me getting poisoned, which definitely not good for me right now. Definitely not good. You can see it's going to cause a lot of damage. Forest Dragon, not particularly armored, 800 missile damage. on the K-Knight Assassin. Bad idea. Bad idea, Air. So I'm going to pay for this one rather significantly. I'm going to get doom flocked over here, so my poor men barely had any hit points to begin with, and they're going to eat it some more. This infantry's not very good, and if it didn't have the leadership factor still here, he's got all 3 of his leaders, albeit a couple are kind of damaged from some fighting. I might be able to chain route or breath attack his infantry to death, but I've got my work cut out for me here. I'm not going to give up on it. There's a small chance that I could get in here, get the right route going, and take care of business. My opponent had a regrouped bolt thrower that he kept hiding right here in the woods for quite a while, which is a very nice move, because now that the battle has shifted, you can see him running back for his equipment, and it could be a big benefit to him if he gets to it. So I'm trying to get some of my dragons back over here to do some healing, but that K-Knight Assassin's annoying, and I'm trying to avoid him. So my healing's not going to be ideal here. I'm going to go ahead and drop the heal, do a little bit of work on my Lord, and whatever units were in the wake here. And then we're going to go ahead and take the fight to the Dark Elves. I see a unit that is ripe for a breath attack. Always look for these types of formations, because the breath attack will do tremendous damage, and that's exactly what happened. We just got a ton of kills, basically annihilating an entire Bleak Sword unit, and I'll be looking to do the same with my other dragon. I've got to cut down the numbers of the Dark Elves to have any prayer here, but my prayers are going to be kind of far-fetched at this point. The Reaper Bolt Thrower is now back under control. I get another breath attack, not as stellar. It definitely should have been saved for right here. Breath attack, then charge. See if we can get the chain route. Without the breath attack, there's definitely no way we're going to chain route anything here, because Lokir is in such good shape. Though we do get lucky. We get one very weak unit to be terrified, but that's it. Another Dark Shard back from routing. These guys just won't leave me alone. Leave me alone, Dark Shards. Leave me alone. I'm trying to get rid of them again. So yeah, now I'm waiting on breath attacks when I have the perfect opportunity for a breath attack. So huge mistake on my part. Big mistake. And my opponent's persistence here is paying off. He brought a lot of troops. It's his battle of attrition. It was up to me to get lots of kills per each unit, right? So each of my units has to get a lot of kills to make up for the numbers. So he is allowed to lose more troops here than I am, right? I'm still fighting, though. I think we got the shadows. Well, they're not out of the fight. He's got a bunch of troops that are kind of hanging back. It was kind of like a weird miffed breath attack there from my dragon. Did okay. It didn't do great. I'm going to get one more breath attack in here. My other dragon, or at least he was supposed to. I think I may have decided to wait because I had units in the line of fire. I can't remember what happened. It may have just miffed it there, too. Sometimes that happens. But yeah, it's going to end up being a close fight. But right now it's an uphill battle for me because Lokir is just completely untouched. He's completely untouched. We managed to get the K-Knight Assassin, but there's a Bolt Thrower back here causing me consistent damage. I've just got no ground forces left, and my dragons are out of hit points, and I'm out of magic with my Spell Singer. So the well has run dry for my Wood Elf build. It didn't work this time. I think it could have if I would have attacked better, more patiently, and been more focused on my breath attack with follow-up attacks to route chunks of Wood Elf or Dark Elf infantry quickly, so that I could then refocus the rest of my infantry on other tasks. I don't think I did a good job focusing units out early, and then moving those free units now onto other tasks. So next time I try something like this, and I come up against something similar, I think that's where my focus needs to be. But now, kudos to my opponent. Fought this one to the end, didn't give up, knew he had a hard task in front of him, and I think you ought to take notice of a few things. His Shades got out of position, they got killed, a bunch of his Dark Shards got hit pretty hard, but when they kept coming back into the fight, he was relentless with them. He kept bringing them back in and targeting key units, and that's the way you gotta be with these units. He didn't get a ton of kills with them, but I spent a lot of time and energy getting rid of these units, to my own detriment sometimes, right? I think maybe if I would have done a little better job with my 2 Wild Riders, this one did very, very well. That's what I needed to do with this other Wild Rider. And then Wild Riders also become very valuable in late game at rear charging cheaper infantry like Bleak Swords and Dread Spears. So I obviously did good with at least 1 breath attack off my Lord. Mediocre with the other dragon. Should have been able to cause a lot more damage with the breath attacks, especially against such a large infantry army. So better use of the breath attacks, a little more patient attack, make sure it's coordinated, pick some units, focus them out. Asterius, great game, man. It was awesome playing with you. He recognized me when he came in, played a very sportsmanlike game, picked a fun army, something I probably didn't quite expect from the Dark Elves. I think that my army was capable of winning here, but Asterius played better overall in terms of he had a plan. It didn't go exactly according to plan, I don't think, because he lost a lot of units, but in the end, his picks were good, and they caused a lot of damage. And the onus was on me to do all the killing, since I'm the one that brought the smaller, more elite army, and he had the larger army that could take a little more attrition during combat. And so, Asterius, good job. And then hopefully you all got some tips from what I did wrong there. Tell me what kind of Wood Elf armies you all like. I'm going to be trying some of my own. I'm not just going to necessarily copy people's builds and go use them. I've got to come up with some skirmishing builds, but I'd love to hear what you guys think about Wood Elves. How do you like to play them? What units are your favorite? What matchups do you think are the toughest for the Wood Elves? I'm going to keep dropping into Quick Battle, but also I'll be doing a stream Thursday, which is probably today when you're watching this, and I'll play battles against the community, so please join that, and I will play the Wood Elves every time. I'm probably going to get my butt kicked a lot. These guys are not my best faction, but you know what? That's part of a challenge. You have fun. I'm going to put myself out there, try it, see what I can do. Anyway, hope you all enjoyed this one. HeirofCarthage signing out for now. I hope to see you all soon with some more Total War Warhammer 2 action.